All right, it's showtime!
As flashy as ever, I see. Why did you wake me up again?
Well, this is our new Discord server. We're taking over the Hyrule Discord server, but the video will remain up FYI.
Okay then. Just what are we gonna do today then?
Well, what seems to be the norm for other Discord servers is usually doing a tier list of our own series. So I guess that...
Okay, I'm down for that.
What the heck is a Discord?
That's right. Your old ass died before Prime YouTube.
Speaking of, how did you revive him anyways? Isn't he supposed to be a door statue now?
Well, I didn't do it. Apparently Margaret told me that Elizabeth and Theodore did some major stuff and managed to bring him back, alongside his sister too.
His who?
Yeah, nobody remembers her either.
We gonna get started or what?
All right, I'm getting it up now. I'll start off with an easy one. Revelations Persona 1 on the OG PlayStation.
The start of our series, though I don't think many people remember this one, TBH.
Yeah, it was a neat start to our series, but compared to future entries, it is nothing in comparison.
Agreed. What I'll say is that I like the atmosphere of this game. It feels very Shin Megami Tensei, especially in its music.
Can't agree. However, this appears to be the Western release, right?
Sure looks like it.
Well, in that case, I think this should get a low C tier.
What?
Anyway, reason why. Come on, it's obvious. It's technically an unfinished build of a completed game. The entire Snow Queen plot had been scrapped from this release. It had some weird localization issues, and in some cases, offensive depictions.
Oh yeah, I remember now. That plus its slow pacing, weird music, and it having not aged in the slightest.
So a low C tier sound fine to you guys?
That's fine by me.
Hard agree. All right, so on topic is the Japanese release of Persona 1.
There's really not much else to be said that we haven't...
It just has better dialogue and more content than its Western release. I'd say at the very least, a low B tier at best.
You sure?
I'd be cool with that.
All right then. Next up is the final Persona 1 game for the PSP. You know, it's kinda sad that Persona 1 as a whole is forgotten about, and this version being its final legacy as well.
Well, what's wrong with it?
For starters, whilst he personally liked the music, it has been a vocal critic point that the music is worse than the original. It just didn't need replacing.
I think that's valid, and the rock pop songs, to me at least, break the immersion of the creepiness of the game. Its new graphics as well certainly lift up the mood at the expense of realism and the general theme.
I played it once, but it was very similar to its PS1 counterpart. Aside from a few new aspects, like the map, music, vibe, and weaker atmosphere, this game is very 90s, and not something you'll hope to find in the 2010s.
I can agree to that. I'd suggest a C tier alongside its Western PS1 counterpart.
Sounds fine with me. Next up's Persona 2 Innocent Sin, the PS1 Japanese exclusive.
Still sucks that this original version was Japanese exclusive and I would have liked a Sega Saturn port, but that's just me.
Yeah. Also, isn't this the one that involves Nazis and Adolf Hitler himself?
Oh yeah, that is still wild to consider. I'd consider this a classic of the pre-recognized Persona games. It kept the usual creepy atmosphere of Persona 1 and turned it up slightly.
Yeah. And the characters were really well done. I'm also surprised that the game had bisexual representation in the form of June, considering Japan in the 1990s and even today.
Yeah, I also like the characterizations in this game. They just have so much personality, and despite being 2D sprites, they can convey a lot of emotion with simple looks.
So where do we place it, gang?
I'd make a claim for a B tier alongside Persona 1 JP.
Agreed it. Speaking of, we have the remake on PSP.
This was unironically so much better than its PS1 version. It had a lot more content outside of the main quests, had a nice art style, kept its music and updated it tremendously, and was accessible for Western audiences.
Plus, I'm mentioned in it!
Bro thinks is mentioned. You do realize it's not you, dumbass.
Oi!
Well, anyways, this game should promptly go into A tier. Agreed. Next up is Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. You know, I find it weird that Innocent Sin was exclusive to Japan. Its remake was worldwide, then Eternal Punishment was Western exclusive, but its PSP remake was Japanese exclusive.
Yeah, that is weird. What I like about this game is that it actually stars adult to college age characters instead of the usual teens in high school.
I'd agree. However, it felt kinda weird in its story department, as it's technically both a sequel, two-partner, and alternate timeline story. The new characters aside from Tatsuya and Maya were bland compared to Innocent Sin, and it felt more like a novelty than a recommended game.
I can agree to that.
Not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but Maya is a goddamn baddie.
Facts. Anyways, the PSP version is next. What can we really say?
It certainly was the eternal punishment of all time.
Yeah, whilst better than its PS1 original, I can't really find anything to say, so maybe just put it around its OG version.
Okay, so next up is Persona 3 OG on the PS2.
Instant S tier.
Now, hole you horses, Dorkun. This game isn't going in S tier.
Oh, and why the hell not?
Whilst I agree that the game is spectacular with its writing, characters, depression atmosphere, music, and premise, it's slowly paced and it oftentimes can feel disturbing.
Isn't that the point?
Yeah, but I must say the normal gameplay is kinda boring and repetitive, and it's probably got the worst dungeon in the series.
Ain't no way you said that, Mr. Hollow Forest.
He got you there, Unk. You can't be talking Mr. Okamura's palace. Damn. Well, anyways, to avoid Minato, Makoto, whatever he calls himself, having a crash out, I'd suggest a high A tier for me.
That's acceptable.
Emo kid, gonna cry?
Kill yourself.
Well, anyways, next up is Persona 3 FES, or as it's apparently supposed to be a short word for, festival.
There ain't no festival in my games, but Zesty U's definitely does.
Whatever you say. But the only real difference I noted from this game was just a slightly higher fidelity rate, and of course, the obvious.
Yeah, the answer was pretty mid, not gonna lie.
Hard agree. That argument in C's versus C's battle was really stupid, not gonna lie.
Yeah, plus that new robot chick, apparently Ajax's sister or something, was also kinda unnecessary, and I didn't like her character, TBH.
Yeah, I'd suggest putting it with Persona 3, cause there's not much different. The answer is just kinda mid.
Alright then.
Alright, next up is Persona 3 Portable on the PSP.
The more I see these kind of games, the more I realize that Atlus have no ideas between major releases.
True. This version, however, is very similar to its PS2 version, but features a point-and-click style visual novel as its main source of story. That personally lowers it for me.
Aside from one obvious monument to the series, our beloved FemC.
Yeah, Atlus has really hoed her NGL. Like, come on. Not even the dancing game?
Yeah, and her only major appearance since then, being in fucking Persona Q2 of all places. At least she got to be a part of our 25th anniversary.
True. Well, the whole premise of FemC at all brings this game up for MRE, and despite its visual novel playstyle, still has many elements from the PS2 version. A low A tier if you please.
Excellent argument. Approved. Anyways, next up is...
Speaking of,
What can we really say? It's got a nice vibe, and the music slaps like always with Sega. But other than that,
C tier it is then. Alright, next up is Persona 3 Reloaded.
why did it just go quiet all of a sudden?
this game is absolute cinema. The music, the graphics, the readends, the dungeons, the personas, the story, the characters, the atmosphere, and so much more deserve this game in instant S tier.
Thought he was gonna crash out harder than that TBH.
Yeah, but I do agree with Emokoto. I improved so much on its PS2 original. Its styling was really beautiful with the water effects, and the new gameplay additions make this an S tier for me. Though I must say, the dungeons and repetitive daytime gameplay are still present, so it bogs that down for me, but not by a lot, since the greater package is so much better.
Agree as well. Anyways, next up is Persona 4 for the PS2.
This game is peak! The characters, the vibes, the music, the gameplay and story were just so beautiful it made me respect Hollow Forest. I'd say an instant S tier for my beautiful game.
You be fucking for real, dog.
What? Are you saying this isn't a masterpiece, you bitch?
Not what I said, but this game is not an S tier.
And why is that?
Well, for starters, I had a much friendly vibe compared to my Goated series. That's not a problem in and of itself, but it certainly alienated many Persona fans. The voice acting felt weak for me, and this version has been left to the dustbins of history. Plus, admittedly, it kept that same slow pacing and repetitive gameplay from my games, mainly because it's built off the same engine. Plus, the humor was just not all that, man.
I hate to admit it, but Minato's right. I will, however, praise the consistent tonal shifts, the characterizations, premise, and the satisfying plot twist at the end. Nanako's arc always makes me cry, and Dojima's arc was just so great, man.
You make damn sure that angel is safe at all times when Dojima's gone.
I will protect her to my last dying breath. Don't you worry.
Excellent. So, at least an A tier for this one then. If I'm looking correctly, this is Persona 4 Golden.
Oh, yeah. This is right now the best version of Persona 4. It improved on the graphics, the voice acting, added new content, and I must say I thought Marie was a decent new addition.
Agree. One thing I have a problem is in the voice acting, and them replacing Chi's voice actor in the PS2 version to the modern one we have today. Don't know what happened to force Atlas to making that change.
Yeah, that was a weird choice. I thought the OG voice actress was decent enough, but I do like her current voice actress.
As we mentioned before, the Hollow Forest arc was straight buns.
Yep. One thing I like is the actual neat LGBT representation in this game. Kanji being bi or gay-leaning, and Naoto having a trans-adjacent story or RC was pretty good. Whilst it still felt a little stereotypical in certain aspects, it was still heartwarming to watch.
Yeah, that's still a whole can of worms though, given real-world circumstances and rising hate in the world. Plus, our fans can't even agree on it. So I say we leave that be for today.
Yeah, but as a final send-off, LGBTQ rights matter for all.
Facts. So we agree this game goes in S tier, right? It's us the better version of Persona 4 until the remake comes out.
Yeah, that I can agree on.
Sounds fine to me.
Alright, next up is Persona 4 Arena.
A neat little spin-off fighting game that I hope we get more of in the future. It technically being a sequel to my Goated series was also a nice twist to the usual and future formula for spin-offs.
I don't know about Goated, but yeah, this was a pretty good fighting game. The story was a neat addition, and I really liked seeing the Persona 3 cast, minus Minato's bum ass, appear and actually aged at that.
As much as I didn't like that comment, I'm inclined to agree. I'm so proud of what my friends have accomplished, and I hope they still remember me.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. You can always visit them now that you're alive.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Anyways, where should we place this game? I'd suggest a low to mid B tier at best.
Perhaps an A tier is in order. Whilst it's got some flaws, it's still a polished game and worth playing.
Agree as well.
Okay then, next up's Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. Man, that title is so 2000s and early 2010s coded, when developers would just put random words to a game for effect.
Yeah, this game, to me, is an improvement of Og Arena, and by technicality, is an actual confirmed sequel.
Aren't we all sequels to each other?
Well, yes, in terms of time spans and occasional references, Ultimax felt more like an actual interconnected sequel, rather than its own standalone title in the same universe.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I must say, the story was pretty neat, albeit a little flawed compared to Arena. But
the characterizations are, dare I say, even better than OG Arena. I can partially agree to that. However, I really didn't like how it leaned into one specific attribute of a character mentioned as a novelty in the Origin game, such as Akito's advise on protein, and then cranked it up to 11 by making it an entire personality trait.
Yeah, that was pretty stupid, but regardless, this game should properly be put with its OG version, in my humble opinion.
Okay then, next up is Persona Q, Shadow of the Labyrinth.
This was certainly a weird adventure. It supposedly takes place during the events of both me and Makoto's games, but then is forgotten when we return.
Yeah, it was nice seeing you for the first time. Though, why the fuck did you guys do JoJo poses when you first appeared in our version of the story?
Because it's awesome, duh.
Regardless, I do find some enjoyment with this game. Whilst it potentially has a weaker gameplay system, the chibi art style, especially with Koromaru, music, creepy atmosphere, rather interesting story, and the characterizations of Rei and Kronos were quite heartwarming and enjoyable to see.
So, should we give it a high A tier then? Agreed. Okay then, next up is Persona 4 Dancing All Night.
Man, this is the only dancing game that I thought was good. Its style, coolness, music, and even additional story were quite neat to see.
Yeah, this one was interesting at the very least, and it really kept that tonal writing from Golden.
What else can be said about this game? It's a decent rhythm dance game. I don't know what that intro cutscene was all about though, especially with Yukiko and Chie.
Doesn't really matter. Anyways, a low B. Sound fine with you guys?
Yeah, that's all right for me. Anyways, next up is...
So, we all agree on it being an S tier, right?
Partially.
The fuck do you mean partially?
Morgana and Sleep.
Okay, yeah, that is pretty stupid. Plus, the Okamura's arc was just a mess that really took it down a peg for me. Haru was kinda irrelevant to the story outside of this one arc, and by then, she's only got 2 palaces left that she does nothing in.
Yeah, but aside from that, holy shit. The art style, personas, voice acting, cutscenes, music and gameplay were just so good. There's a reason you two washed bums are copying my style with your remakes.
Hey,
Fuck you, Akira. But anyways, yeah, I can agree that this game is amazing for the standards of previous entries.
I'm still mad you kept delaying it from 2013 to 2016, and still mad the Western release came out a year later. It was so delayed that it even still has a forgotten PS3 version that's just the same but slightly worse in graphics.
Blame Atlus for their mistakes. I'm just the byproduct of it.
Well, regardless, this game is still amazing despite its flaws, and I'd suggest A and S tier.
That is acceptable. All right, next up is Persona 5 Royal.
So, this time we agree, right?
Oh, definitely. This game improved so much of OG Persona 5. It added new music, personas, characters, and stories. Kasumi Yoshizawa was a great new Karasir, and Dr. Maruki was possibly one of the best and most tragic antagonists in our franchise.
That is true for me. Rest in peace, Billy Kometz. You did an amazing job.
Rest in peace to our GOAT.
Well, I'm also mad about one thing, COVID. It single-handedly made this game Japanese exclusive for 3 whole years when it first released in 2019. I know COVID affected jobs and possibly gave brainworms to people, but it also told me Atlus has a shit localization team, when at best, it could have been westernized by late 2021.
Yeah, that is stupid on Atlus's part.
I've played this game possibly at least over 50 times, might have even been 100. First on PS4, then on PS5, then most of the time on the Steam Deck. It does quite pretty boring after multiple playthroughs, but one thing I learned is that I had a subconscious memory of this game, as despite me having a gap of 4 years between playing it at one time and just not thinking about it, I still knew every part, where to go, and how to do things.
Yeah, that happened for me too. And despite my biases, I must say that it does get pretty boring after a while. That being said, the 3rd semester, new character arcs, and additional screen time for Haru made it more enjoyable than OG Persona 5. Plus, fuck-ass Morgana doesn't tell me to sleep and allows me to go outside for a change.
That's a godsend. Anyways, does anyone play the Kasumi as protagonist mod for this game? Cause that's how I've been playing it since it...
Oh, that mod is peak, especially its Rose and Violet story add-on. It's been the only way I've played alongside the mod menu. It's still pretty wild to see 2 Kasumis and just accepting it. And heck, even the Confidant still working the same makes for some weird stuff.
True. Now we just need the rest, and we'll be golden.
Say that again?
No.
Damn. Well, anyways, a S tier over Tiz OG version if you please.
Very well. Next up. Guys, hear me out.
Nope.
Oh, come on. Not even.
Rivers in the desert.
Anyways, next up is Persona Q2.
Oh, this game was a weird oddity. It failed because it was a 3DS game in fucking 2019 of all years, when the Switch was still hitting record highs, and as a result got a Western release but no English dub.
Yeah, and one thing I like about it is Kotone's part of the story. At least they remembered our girl once, and then proceeded to make her alone with her own team, not knowing who she is. Yeah, that girl needs a hug pronto.
At least she had good characterization in this game. With her, let's just say, unhinged behavior and unfortunate depressing moments.
Also, Josuke as a fucking dinosaur will never not be funny to me. Like, that's just his head on a T-Rex.
Yeah.
But other than that, this game is mediocre at best, but some things can be enjoyable. I hope we get another Q in the future. Me too, so a low B tier then.
Agreed. Up next, Persona 5 Strikers, or as it was called in Japan, Persona 5 Scramble, the Phantom Strikers.
What is up with the Japanese and long-ass titles?
Yeah, that is kinda weird. But anyways, this game was pretty good all things considered. It felt true to an actual idea of a sequel, but made the mistake in my opinion to be a sequel to OGP5 instead of Royale.
They were being developed at the same time, and both were different production teams. I wouldn't expect them to be connected.
Yeah, the music for this game was absolute fire, and the hack and slash gameplay style really works with the Persona 5 style. The two new characters in Sophia and Zenkichi were also great additions, and their characters had well-thought-out arcs. However, it can and often does get repetitive, and the final boss has a lot less dramatic flair to it than the main Persona 5 games.
Agreed. It's still a decent game and a worthwhile experience, but lacks that replayability of your typical Persona game. I'd suggest a high A tier at best.
That is acceptable. Up next is Persona 5 Tactica?
I'm gonna be honest. What is this? It's got the chibi art style of PQ, the gameplay of Mario and Rabbids, and a lacking story.
Yeah, honestly, who gives a fuck about this game?
It's got nice music and neat premise, but yeah, who cares?
I can agree with him. Just put it in B tier and move along. Fine. Anyways, next up is Persona 5X. They are really milking your games dry, aren't they?
Yeah, like, a Persona mobile game is cool and all, but I'ma just say, bro thinks he's part of the team.
Yeah, I don't know who Wonder thinks he's fooling.
Also, it's a goddamn gacha game that instantly kills any enjoyment I might have with the game. I've also heard it treats global players unfairly by providing them with less rewards compared to their Chinese and Taiwanese audience, or as I like to call them sometimes, West and East Taiwan.
Let's not go there, lest the CCP gets on our asses. Anyways, yeah, just but in the low tiers, I don't care which.
Fair enough. Anyways, that's it for this list, Ganga. Whew, that was pretty nice. I'm glad we didn't devolve into infighting like those Spideys or Hedgehogs.
Yeah, I hope we can meet them one day. Anyways, it's getting dark for me, and Dojima made dinner, so I'm a log out, gang.
Yeah, me too. I'm having a sleepover at LeBlanc with my friends. I'll go too. Hopefully I can find my old friends. See ya, chat. Bye, world.
Goodbye for now.